Hi there, my name is Michael Neff and I am the founder and director of Gears Sports. And I'd like to make a video today talking about my good friend Scott Hamilton, who is one of the most successful PGA Tour coaches. And recently one of his players, Maverick McNealy, won on the PGA Tour. And we had a Gears Summit and I asked him what you guys were working on and what kind of, he was really struggling with some specific ball striking stuff. And Scott's kind of a good old Southern boy, and he calls them, yeah, I get him on the gears. He calls gears the gears, and he sounds like he's from out in the middle of nowhere, but he really knows his stuff, and he's a smart guy, and I'm really honored to even know him, and I'm grateful that he came to our summit. But one of the things that he talked about that I want to illustrate here was this right elbow action. And you can see here that it's maybe easier to see from behind, but this is basically how much the right elbow bends. We hear a lot about how the left arm needs to be straight in golf, but how much does this right elbow bend? So in his case, Maverick McNealy's case, he was getting about 102. That means that the elbow was bending about 102 degrees here, right elbow. And most amateurs get this thing up in like the 110 to 130 range, a lot more right arm flexion than what we're seeing here. But I brought some other things up, like this right here is the pelvis rotation. And Scott talks a lot about matching up the pelvis turns and also getting this club out in front of him. So in this case, when the right arm flexes too much, the club will actually get underneath him too much. So the last thing he wants is the club to get too far behind him. And when the right arm bends too much, in Scott's experience, as he was talking about, it's harder to keep this club out in front of the player, or it gets too much underneath them. And the problem with that is that at impact, when we see this problem, we don't have as much turn, pelvis turn in this case, when the right elbow is in too much flexion at the top of the swing. So again, his rule is I want more turn at impact than I do at the top of my swing. And he's saying a lot of that has to do with how much the right arm bends. So here's an example of what he did with Maverick. At the top of Maverick's swing after, you can see that it went from 102 to 95. So he's almost at 90 degrees. He really likes that right arm to be right around 90 degrees. And you see his hip turn is at 49. But then at impact, his hip turn went to 51. So he actually got more turn with his pelvis when his right arm wasn't as flexed. And so matching things up is really important. And in his case, he talked about this, and it was an awesome video. So if I want to get things matched up, turn and tilt, if I have too much right arm bend, it's going to be hard to get that impact, my pelvis impact open enough. So in this case, he has more turn at impact than he does at the top. You'll also see that his rib cage turns 30 and his rib cage tilts 31. So he actually has a little bit more turn than tilt, but they're pretty close to matching up. And that's what we're looking for. So he was able to get a little less path. Angle of attack stayed about the same. And this is what they worked on. And it was an awesome video, which we'll drop one of these days. But really, you can see how much that right elbow flexion at the top matters for him. So I'm really grateful that what he talked about, and we learned a lot from him. And what an awesome golf pro he is. Those guys are all lucky.